Welcome to our World Our Power Show. I'm Lady Pauline, your host, with Mr. Glenn Greenwich, my co-host and partner, and my guest co-host. Who are you? Mr. Alvin
That's right,
Hartley.
Pauline. You love when I come with that deep voice.
I do. I
I'm
love
more
that
than glad to be
voice.
on the show today.
And I,
Thank you, Pauline.
and I have a very special guest, Mr. Carl Clay, the executive director of Black Spectrum Theater here in Queens. Welcome to our world.
Well, thank you,
I,
and welcome to you too.
yes, it's great to see you. I want to go back in history a little bit, Clay, as to how did you get started with Black Spectrum, and what made you come up with that idea?
Well, I'm not going to say it was just coming up with an idea. It was first wanting to be very much involved in writing about things going on around me. And so I would be, as many young people back in the day, you're in your parents' basement. It's a Queens thing. You're in the basement and you're trying out different ideas and writing things. So I was a writer. And
okay.
Just started writing some things about what was going on, in the late 60s, and so it was then getting together with some friends and saying, okay, how do we take what's on paper and bring it to life? And so, those were some of the beginnings. A friend of mine was involved in a program up in Vermont with Walter Cronkite's daughter. There was some kind of summer program going on, and they were doing this theater stuff. And it was like, he said, well, when you come to when we're going to bring it down into Manhattan, down to the Clark Center for the Performing Arts. And I was like, oh, wow, this is great, because I've been working on these plays and all that kind of stuff. And so I went down to see this play called Us. And I mean, I was just blown away by what they were able to accomplish on stage. And so it really got me involved in wanting to be involved. And so I went up and watched their rehearsals. And then, they said, well, do you want to, I said, well, I'm really here because I have some scripts that I want to do. And they said, yeah, we'll get to that. But right now you want to get on the floor and be involved in the theater group. So I did that, and they never looked at my plays or anything like that. But it was the beginning of my interest in theater.
Okay, so basically you was a writer. You liked to write.
Yeah, basically okay. A writer. Basically, okay. Yeah, that was it.
Carl, what year are we talking about now?
This is back in 1969.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't born yet, so there you go.
Yeah, right.
And thanks for joining us. Renee Hill is on with us as well.
Hi, Renee.
You're welcome. Hi.
Welcome to our world.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Carl, before that, did you have an interest at all in theater? I mean, obviously you started writing prior to growing up there. So
I think it started probably even before that. I mean, I never got a chance to see a lot of Broadway plays or anything like that at the beginning, although I did see a couple, and one of them was with Oscar Brown Jr., and it was called Joy, and it was a one-man show on Broadway. And it was the first kind of up-close experience to watch a Black actor talk about things that were going on around me, around the community. And so that was also inspiration. And just being involved, and then the music piece was always an influence upon me. My older brother is a musician, and he was bringing on thousands of RPM records a week, because he used to work in a record store, and I would be forced to listen to all of this music, and I would be, like, wow. So then the music and then the things that I was writing started to come together, and I mean, that's the way experiences are. It's this, it's a little bit of that, it's a little bit of this and all of that. But once I got into Clark Center for the Performing Arts, that really set the mood. And then later on, I'll be honest with you, I just got tired of going into Manhattan. And that sounds strange, but I was going there almost every day, and it's like, hey, this is a long trip. So I went to the pastor of Trinity Lutheran Church and said, look, is it possible we could do something with in the basement of the church? We want to do some kind of play. And so I got together with people like A. Van Littles and a Earl Summers and a Jenny Kellum and Romaine Martin. And so we just kind of came together and started doing things, Larry Green and St. Clair Reed and all these folks. And we rehearsed in the basement for hours and hours and hours on end, hours and hours. And our first play was actually it was called Niggas. And the reason, now it sounds weird, but what we did was we traced that word all the way back to the 16th century, and we brought it forward as to how that word came about. And then we followed the whole progression of our people throughout the years and stuff. It was a very advanced piece, I must say. And so when we put this play on, everybody was like blown away. They were like, whoa, you guys are like, 17, 16, 17, and you're doing this kind of material. And so we did it and, did this show over and over again and this and that. And then we broke up for the summer. And then over that next summer going into 1970, it was just a whole lot of reading and studying about theater. And that's when it really got me hooked, and when we came back in 1970, I had an idea for a play called Black Love. And we worked over at the Storefront Museum, and we were working 7 days a week, at least 8, 9, 10, 12 hours a day. And when it was all finished, a guy named Tom Lloyd, who ran the Storefront Museum, which is now the gymnasium of York College, he had turned an old gasoline station into a museum. It was called Storefront Museum. And so we became the first production in that place. And when we put on that show, the neighborhood came out. I mean, it was like hundreds of people coming out online to see this show. And we turned, as they say, we turned it out. And that really became the beginning. And in that September, we kind of came together and we said, well, the summer's over. How many people want to, continue on what we're doing? Maybe we should become a group. And everybody in favor, raise your hand. And everybody raised their hands. And that's really the beginning. That was really the beginning. We were in A. Van Little's basement. And, and from there, we just continued to build on our ideas, plays like Black Love, play like 2000 Black, where Black folks end up in the year 2000.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And we did that back in the 1972. And we had the fortune of working with a jazz fusion artist, Roy Ayers. And, we took the play Black Love to him because we wanted to do a cast album. He never did the cast album, but it ended up where I ended up writing lyrics for a film that he was involved in called Coffee with Pam Grier. And so that really, connected us. And so, we continued with that relationship with Roy Ayers, and that kind of led to basically doing the 2000 Black as a song, and then it ended up on his album.
I respect that. Should I go back downstairs?
And we subsequently,
I think, hold on, Glenn. I think Kenny Carter has to mute. Okay, there you go. Go ahead, Carter.
Yeah, I muted him.
Okay, so so we started working out with Roy Ayers and doing stuff, and that play 2000 Black was then. At that time, a lot of people were into disco. And so we set up in the St. Albans Cultural Center there, right across the street from St. Catherine's. And we would work in that place relentlessly for hours on a play called 2000 Black. And we just realized a lot of people were not coming out. And so we turned the 2000 Black play into a disco version, and we took it into the discos throughout Manhattan and, into New Jersey. And, place like Leviticus and, all of these places, the Cellar, the Dome, we took our piece down there, and it really just kind of galvanized what we were doing. We were talking about concepts and ideas. That was the thing about Black Spectrum. It was concepts, and so 2000 Black was a concept, and very well received. And we traveled that around the Eastern Seaboard into the universities and the colleges. And then there came a time when we started to say, well, okay, that's getting worn out now. What do we, what's our next step? And so, and all the same time, I'm going to school, I'm in college, and, and so when I finished school, it was, okay, how do we turn this into we want to do this for real. We really want to continue on with this. And so we continued doing our plays, and we start looking for a home. And about that time, I started working with Melvin Van Peebles. I was part of a place called Third World Cinema that was started by Ossie Davis and Cliff Frazier. And it was a training program. Their first film was Claudine. And so that was, I worked with that program, and the end result of that program is they said, well, when you finish the program, we want to place you with someone who we feel would be a good mentor for you. So they scratched their heads because I was into theater, I was into film, and they scratched their head. And one afternoon, Cliff Frazier called me into the office and said, something, I have an idea. I want you to go take an interview with somebody that I think, kind of fits into the same vibe as you do. And so that person was Melvin Van Peebles, who's now considered the godfather of Black independent cinema. And so I went for an interview with Melvin, and I got the job. And so I started working with Melvin Van Peebles. And a lot of people don't know that Melvin Van Peebles was actually the Wiz Group. When you called for tickets for the Wiz, you were actually calling Melvin Van Peebles' office, because his company is called Wiz Group. And he got that because when the Wiz first came out, it was not a success. It was floundering, and they were running out of money. And it was Bill Cosby and Melvin Van Peebles who put monies into the Wiz. And once that money got injected into the show, that's when it really turned around, and it became the hit that we all know as the Wiz. So as a result, they awarded Melvin by giving him group sales. And so I was the group sales manager when I was hired to, and so I would go to all the local theaters and to the box offices and get tickets, and people would call on the phone and, I want 50 tickets to see the Wiz, and, and people would call. I can remember talking to people on the phone one day when I first got there. I was wet behind the ears. And so people would call on the phone. Somebody would call and say, I want 150 tickets in the magazine section. And I'd say, the magazine? I said, you mean the mezzanine? And so Melvin would stop. He'd take the phone and say, listen, hold on a second, please. He said, look, if they want to call it the magazine, let them call it the magazine section. You understand that? I said, okay. So I can, yes, sir. We got 150 tickets in the magazine section, whatever you want.
So your dream was just growing. Bit by
it was
bit.
growing. Yeah. So, so as I worked with Melvin, I was still rehearsing the theater company and still doing stuff. And then lo and behold, Melvin, who's a consummate artist and writer, got a chance to do a movie called Greased Lightning. And it starred Pam Grier, Richard Pryor, Vincent Gardenia, all of these folks, Maynard Jackson, Richie Havens, Cleavon Littles, all of these folks. And so, I was managing the Wiz Group at that time, and he he got this job. I remember sitting in the office. He came running out of office. I got the contract with Warner Brothers. I got the contract. So, the next thing was, hey, I want to go and be a part of this movie thing too. So, but things really weren't working out there in the office with his, the other person who worked in the office. And so eventually, I left, and he just said, look, I understand what you're talking about, because there's a little friction there in the office and stuff. And so I left, but we spoke later on, and he said, I want you to come down and work on this movie. And so we went down to Georgia, into Madison, Georgia, and worked for the next 2 months on this movie. And I worked with the producer's office, collecting movie footage from all around about the first Black race car driver, and Wendell Scott. And then lo and behold, Melvin actually got fired on the movie. And they didn't agree with his artistic, choices and stuff. And so he had brought a lot of us down to get us into those in those film unions. And so we were all ready to walk off the film. And Melvin said, no, you know what? You all stay here. That was the purpose, to get you guys on this. And so we stayed. And they hired another director, Michael Schultz, who did Cooley High.
Oh yeah. I remember Cooley High very well. Very well.
So Michael Schultz was the director. And I got involved with, continuing to work on the sets and the set department and prop department and stuff. And then one afternoon, Michael Schultz was asking people questions about what were they doing in the 60s. And so he tapped a few people, and they start talking, and he tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, what were you doing in the 60s, And I said, oh, wow, well, there was this and that. And then a part of my brain clicked in and said, wait a minute. This is an audition.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's when I said, the 60s, what was I doing in the 60s? I turned the 60s out. Do you understand it? He said, you got the part. So I was able to, I ended up in a scene in the movie Grease Lightning with Richard Pryor, Cleavon Littles, Bo Bridges, and Richie Haven. And the day that I was to shoot that film, to shoot my scene, was the day that Richard Pryor decided to walk off the set, because the producer, Hannah Weinstein, who had done a lot of television before, she was not paying the bill for Wendell Scott's race car that had the engine got burnt out during the filming, and they kept waiting for the check to pay for this man's car. And so Richard Pryor got wind of it, and he said, look, I'm walking until you pay this man's bill. It's like a $7,000 bill. Until you pay that, I'm out. And then I'm saying to myself, but Richard, why did you have to do it on the day I'm supposed to do my scene? Why don't you wait a week? But he did his thing, and everybody respected him for that. And about 5 days later, we came back, and we started actually right back at that scene. So it was the pool hall scene. And so that I did a couple of scenes in the movie and stuff. And then, after that, I went out to California, worked at Warner Brothers, 20th Century Fox, on those studio lots. But my love was the theater. I was offered to go out to the Canary Islands on Richard Pryor's next movie where he was filming and stuff. But, that California vibe was just too laid back for me. I like energy, I like movement. And so, I came back. And when I came back with a vengeance to make sure that the theater, was continuing. And that was the time in which we got our first grant from the State Council. And an old drugstore that I used to work in on Linden Boulevard and 205th Street, was abandoned, like many stores were on Linden Boulevard in the late 70s. And we decided to just take one of those proverbial leaps and say, you know what, let's rent this place and let's do a thing. And that became really our first location there on 205th Street and Linden Boulevard. And we were there for 10 years. We did a hell of a lot of work. We made a lot of films there. We put on a lot of theater productions. Our first big hit was Dick, Legend of the West, or they went that away.
Okay.
And we won all kinds of awards for that show, took it off Broadway. My first film, Babies Making Babies, went all over the country, and we do all kinds of things there. And then that became the basis to begin to plan the Roy Wilkins Park experiment, because we were approached by people like Reverend Davis with the Presbyterian Church, and Dr. Dees, and a number of Mary Jackson. There was some HUD monies that was floating around, and they had all these federal hearings on it, and we went and we were supported. And they decided to give us some HUD money to find a location, and that's about the time I met Solomon Goodridge with Roy Wilkins Park, which wasn't called Roy Wilkins, it was Southern Queens Park Association, and Paul Gibson. And so we kind of put our heads together, and they had no plans for any kind of cultural activities in there. And we kind of, came together and took that thought to the borough president, and they turned it into a $10 million renovation project for Roy Wilkins Park. So those were some of our beginnings. That was that's how we got started. That's a little bit of the history, you know.
I know you've been celebrating your 50th year.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, 50 years is it's a good piece of change there in terms of time, and we're proud of that. We have 50 memories and 50 dreams for tomorrow. So we continue to try to do what we consider to be work that's important for our community, and that means not just doing theater, but trying to make theater a relevant part and an essential part of what we need in the community for everybody to, we want to do our part in the community as a partner in the community to make things happen. So,
Carl, I got to stop you. And I want to acknowledge you just for the work that you have done personally in both film and theater over the years. I'm so glad that we're having this conversation, because I really get to get a sense of who you are and what you've done in terms of accomplishments. I also want to say that I'm so glad that you're here infusing our young people with exposing them to theater and to the arts. I think that's such, I've actually had all three, my niece and my two nephews have participated in your summer programs.
Okay.
And performed, and they really got juiced by doing that. I'm just curious, given I know that theater is all over the world. Mm-hmm. I know that Broadway is huge all over the world as well. Is that one of the things that kind of drove you back to New York to be able to be closer to the theater?
No,
as opposed to the film.
That's a good question, because a lot of people think that, and this is where I guess I've run into some, as they say, static sometimes, not physically, but mentally, in the sense that the assumption is that there's a theater. So you want to be famous, you want to take your shows to Broadway, you want to be, you want to make $1 million, you want to, all of these kinds of things. The reality is that, yes, we want our shows to be seen by as many people as possible. But I came up from a different perspective, and that was, one of the groups that I really studied long ago was the Free Southern Theater. And that theater was set up to go throughout the South and help people to become registered voters. And so they would go out into the backcountry, and do skits and do short plays and things that would kind of motivate people to turn them on to what was going on around them. And so that was one of my model groups. Also, the San Francisco Mime Company was another group that came along over the years. It was, we kind of used to call them the Earth, Wind, and Fire of theater, because they traveled all over the country, and their message was always so unique and different about how, theater, is a tool. And so I've always seen it as a tool for change. And so many of our shows that we've developed, in our earlier years and even currently, are all really aimed at educating people and turning them on to things. So that's where I've spent all of my writing time and input to the theater. So plays like The Healing Zone, in which we talk about the challenges between traditional and alternative health. Plays like Dr. Dees's Obesity, trying to get folks to, understand that by losing weight, you become healthier. Deadwood Dick, Legend of the West, we wanted to educate people that there were Black cowboys and there were people out there who, look like us, who, are part of that. Our film is Babies Making Babies. One of my first films occurred because as I sat in the office near on 205th Street, I used to see all of these teenage girls walking by, and their stomachs were sticking. I'm like, what's going on? Why is it everybody's pregnant? What's going, And so I was asked to do a project in my graduate film class, and they said, you got to come up with something in a couple of days. And I said, oh, wow, yeah, the young ladies who are walking by with their stomachs, and you know what? Let me see if I can do something. So I wrote something up, and that film became Babies Making Babies, and it hit nerves. And so it was important that we continue that kind of work. So when I say static, I mean, sometimes actors would come out to the theater and their thing would be, well, how, you're not
a star or something, right?
Yeah. Make me a star. I'm going to, and that wasn't necessarily where we were coming from in that respect. And so, we got involved with the CETA program, and the actors would come from Manhattan out to the CETA program. And in their mind, this was just, a stopover, something to do while they're waiting for Broadway. And my famous statement to them always is that, well, if you're so famous and you're so deep, what are you doing here? Why are you here? And that's something you always got to ask folks, what are you doing here if you are so above something else? And so we had to really push back on people who decided that was their, and I totally respect their desires, but that wasn't necessarily where we were coming from. And so over the years, we had to kind of resolve that contradiction between, just what kind of theater we are and what kind of theater do people see us as. And very honestly, even with the summer camp, sometimes the parents come in and they'll say things like, my child only had 4 lines in the play. And so what kind of play is it? They're supposed to have this many lines, they're supposed to do that. And we'd say, look, even from a professional standpoint, that it isn't how many lines you have. Some of the greatest actors have no lines. It's called acting. And so, those are the things that you kind of navigate through, over the years. But
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. What would you classify Black Spectrum as a more socially conscious than entertainment, or you're really trying to do both? You're trying to entertain and bring a message to our community.
Yeah. In 1970, I wrote the words, I say, what is a spectrum? A spectrum is a wide range of frequencies or wavelengths that are emitted from a source. And from that source, we intend to investigate every frequency and aspect of the Black experience. And so I still believe that's what we do. That's part of our mission. And doing theater of relevancy is social relevancy is primary. That's our primary objective, so.
Carl.
Pauline, go ahead.
Yeah, Carl, you have done so many wonderful things in your life. What do you feel that you would like to do that you haven't done yet?
I guess you can say probably I still have some films in me. There's a play I've been working on for the last 25 years. I'm waiting for it to completely come out. It's an incredible idea and concept and stuff, and hopefully to come out. But I think from a personal level, having a family has been a gift. I felt like I became a real human being after having a family. I think one of the things I like to do is more travel. I'd love to do that. And just when I thought the 50th anniversary and maybe I'll do a little sabbatical here and do that, I don't think so. So I have to probably do what the board chair of Black Spectrum Theater, John Howell, has suggested that he likes to do, which is you get your big television set and you put on one of those travel logs and you sit there and watch it. You can go all over the world, okay, and not leave your house, but that's something I would like to do is more travel, because I think that there's a lot of times there's some events that I was invited to that I just never got to, and that I like to do. So I'd say that, as well as, just putting out some more plays. I have another book that I'm trying to finish and put out, and a couple of films that I want to do. Mm-hmm.
Carl, this is you and I go way back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they mistake us for they'll talk to you and say, I just saw you the other day, so you didn't see me.
Right.
And obviously for the audience don't know, when I was growing up, my mother would always talk about Black Spectrum before you got to Roy Wilkins.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know my mother very well.
That's right.
But what's so unique about for the listeners, what's so unique about Carl is that he diversifies. Carl has put together, I think, 2 soundstage. Is it Carl?
Yeah.
2 soundstage. So he takes not only theater into the community, but also you have your concert series that you do every year. And you always have campaigns that go beyond your doors of Black Spectrum. What I like about also what you've done is that, and you and I have talked about this a lot, is that you bring a lot of celebrities back in the community to perform. That's very important. Vivica Fox, Ozzie Davis. Matter of fact, you're honoring was 3 people. I forgot.
Yeah, it's Leslie Uggams,
right?
Lou Gossett Jr. and Ben Vereen.
Now these are legends, okay? And before COVID-19 hit, we would have been able to really rub elbows. I'm just talking about regular people in the community,
right?
Rub elbows with these legends, Melvin Van Peebles, Ben Vereen. Although, come on, man, they really made things happen. But it's Spectrum that keeps our feet on the ground in the community. And people have to really understand that. I said to you, Carl, if anybody ever been to the theater, I think the city capacity, what, 300-400? What is the city?
Yeah.
400? And Carl said, our theater is bigger than the off-Broadway theaters in Manhattan. And some of the off-Broadway theaters, your seat is in the other person's seat.
Right.
Okay. And one of the things is that I believe that a lot of us should start supporting is we don't have to go to Manhattan to see great theater.
That's right.
You really don't. And we're not only talking theaters, the brother put on concerts,
films.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything.
I know you had Ray Goodman and Brown recently there.
Yeah.
So you do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Leon, the actor who constantly comes back. And people, again, these are celebrities. And I'm hoping that more celebrities take their time to come back and do things in the community. Because all you got to do is that celebrity just has to sign one autograph or shake one hand, and it changes someone's life.
That's right. That's right.
It changes their life. You can do no harm.
That's right. That's right.
I want
You know,
It's communicating to. I've always thought it was important to communicate to different stratas of our community because we're all not on one particular wavelength. We come at 5 or 6 different wavelengths. I mean, some of the people who come in the Black spectrum, as much as we want them to see theater, they only want to hear music. And then there are people who only want to see theater and don't want to hear the music. And then there are young people who come out and say, well, I want to do theater for my age group. And they're not particularly going to be around for the music or the professional theater productions that we do. So we have these different wavelengths. And so I think it's important to reach them. A gentleman, I did a film for the American Health Foundation some years ago. And it was a brother there who was a professor at Cornell University. And he turned me on to something that I will never forget. And that's this idea of, it was called the niggerance theory. And that sounds weird, but it's really profound. And that is that we go through these various stages, of development as African Americans. We were colored, Negro, Black, Afro-American, African-American, African. I mean, these levels. And with each one of those levels, there is a thought process that goes with it. And so what I try to remember is that we're all at different levels, and we can never disrespect a person, because other than that, you're disrespecting yourself, because we were all at different levels in our development. Oh, wow. So just as we develop, there are other people who come along at different points, at different levels of understanding, and we can't overlook that. We can't talk down to them. We can't say, well, I'm better than this one because now I know this and that. And I mean, we've all run into people who, they're blacker than thou, or they're what I call super black, or but there's just different levels. And so the more we understand that, the more we understand something about communication and the rest of that, if that makes any sense. Yeah, it does. So that's what we've tried to do at the theater. Mm-hmm.
Glenn, it's time to pay your bills now, isn't it?
Yeah. Let's do that, and then we'll take some questions from the people listening.
Okay.
After that, go ahead, Pauline.
Well, the first person that I would like to talk about is Kids Break Ground, which is a new program. And their number is 917-204-1658. And it's an app that's on the computer for kids from 7 years old until 12. And it's an educational app, and I think you all should check it out. And the young lady's name that you can get in contact with is Tiffany Good. She's one of the CEO and founder of Kids Break Ground. Glenn, can you
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Any questions for Carl? Go ahead, Renee. I see you on.
So I just wanted to thank Carl because my kids, I have Ashley went through the program. and then I also had 2 other kids that I raised. My mom had adopted, and they went through it. So, and they loved it, and it kept them busy. And I really think it made an impact on their lives. They still talk about going there and having fun and everything. So it's really important that our kids go to Carl's program.
How you doing, Renee?
Especially hi, Carl. Especially in our community, because we don't have much here. Yeah. But it, and the kids always want to be famous. They want to be an actor.
Yeah.
I mean, my daughter's 30. Ashley's 33 now, I think. So she went. Yeah, she went. She started there, I think, at 9 years old. Mm-hmm. She went. Carl had her on a tour, a little tour.
Yeah.
So we went on a bus trip, and Ashley was like one of the stars. So it was really a nice experience.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know,
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
thanks, Renee. Let me finish. You know, we got a couple other sponsors I wanted to mention. The law office of Stephen G. James, located at 8766 Sutphen Boulevard, 646-905-9000. We have the Chocolate Loft at 113-10 Sutphen Boulevard, 347-804-1000. And then we have TMI and Partners, but I'm not sure I've got the right number. Is that 917-204?
No, that's right. No, let me give you that correct number. Oh, thank you for the opportunity as I come in as one of the supporting sponsors. You can reach TMI at 347-234-5304. That's 347-234-5304. Back to you, Glenn.
Thank you so much.
I love it. I love it.
And we can't forget Henry's Carrot Cake. 718-262-8119, and they're located at 159-15 Jamaica Avenue.
Don't forget the carrot cake.
I'll tell Henry not to. And I also like to let everybody know you're listening to Our World, Our Power, and you can be heard on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Tune in, and CBTV, which stands for Caribbean Buzz TV and Radio. Don't forget to also check us out on our Facebook and Instagram page. Let's continue.
Apple TV and Roku.
Oh, yes, right. I always keep forgetting Apple TV and Roku. That's very true. And let's continue this lovely conversation.
Let me jump in here for a second. Carl, now that we've been, it was a little setback for the anniversary. Are you still planning as we start becoming more acclimated back into society? Are you still going to try to do something along that line? Or?
Yes, we are. You know, it was to take place on April 25th. We're trying to see what the feasibility is of bringing it back October 3rd. We're going to be more definite about that in July, around the end of June. We'll look at it and say, does this look like it's feasible? So that's the first plan. The backup is to put it off until next year. So, I mean, we put a lot of energy into trying to build up to the 25th, but like everybody else, everybody I talk to, you know, they're saying, you know, I was just about to do this. I was going to have this going in. So a lot of people's plans were stopped with the COVID-19, and so it was the same as was with us with the galas. So, so yes, to answer your question, we plan to still do it, and we actually may bring it into Black Spectrum Theater itself to do the galas. So,
what about everybody's going virtual? Are there any opportunities to bring theater virtually to people to be able to?
We are doing a series. We have a 4-part series going on. This coming Thursday is the 3rd part. The first part was dedicated to COVID-19. We brought on some medical doctors and alternative health practitioners, and we discussed treatment and prevention for COVID-19. And it was really, really quite enlightening to hear some of the alternative practitioners talk about some things that folks can do. So that went very well. And then this past Thursday, we had a jazz and spoken word program. And this coming Thursday, we have excerpts from the production of Thurgood Marshall. Thurgood Marshall was the first Black Supreme Court justice, and chronicles his life. We're going to do excerpts from that. And then finally, on the 27th of May, we do a season closeout with the actors, the designers, the directors, the board and staff online, as we discuss the productions that we've done this season and what's in store for next season. We're also planning to do our St. Albans Jazz Festival this summer. and we're probably going to do more of the online series to answer your question. So yes, we are going to be doing theater. We're in the process of shooting a couple of PSAs that we want to do on getting these young people to wear their masks, because there's a lot of miseducation out there. There's a lot of stuff over the internet where people are saying, oh, you don't need to wear no mask. This is all fake. It's all bogus. And, it's a plot by the government and all of that stuff. And I always say, if it's a conspiracy, it's working because people are checking out of here. That's for real.
Yeah.
That's true.
So that's the reality. And, we got to get these kids to put on these masks because they're walking around, and the hotter it gets, the less people are going to be, following, the protocol for that. So we're doing that, the PSAs on that. And we also were asked to help out with the census. We came up with a couple of things that I'll make sure that I send out to you. We did some graphic signs and work, and our catchphrase is, we don't count unless we're counted.
Yes.
Fill out the census now. And a lot of people don't know, we have an electronic sign on Merrick Boulevard with the Gil Booth Daycare Center, and that's where our electronic sign sits. And so on that sign, we say, we don't count unless we fill out the census. Please fill out the damn census now. Okay. So that's the way we came with it. And it's important, as Glenn was just saying that, yeah, this is super important because I think it was Congressman Meeks who said something, I think it was back in the 60s, we had something like 60 something congressional districts in New York. Now we're down to 45. So that means that because the numbers are not being counted, we're shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. So we've got to get these folks to fill out these census.
Because we need the money. We need the money.
Yeah, we need the money and the resources.
It's not only money. We got to remember that it's services. It's congressional seats, which is something that we, as you just said, we've been losing every census. Every 10 years, we've been getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Mm-hmm. But you're also talking about monies for hospitals. You're talking about monies for libraries, sewer systems. I mean, you name it, that all that funding gets allocated by the number of people.
That's
and
right.
Then if you've got undocumented folks, that means that they're now putting a drain on those services because the services are designed for X amount and you've got X plus Y coming using those services. So, the capacity of that particular community will not get satisfied with the census. So there's a lot of areas that get impacted by the census, and most people don't realize the full impact.
Hey,
so
Carl, that's that PSA right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's that PSA, because everything he's talking about, sewage gone,
garbage collection
gone, gone.
Yeah.
You're left. No census, you're gone. So basically, you're saying all those things will gone. So you're the only person that's left, and you'll be gone.
Yeah.
Okay. A census report keeps all this in place. You don't fill it out, all that's gone, and you're next.
That's right.
And in fact, in our community, I believe that it was 49% counted, replied.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just so unacceptable for our community who's got a lot of, undocumented folks in it who need services, basic services.
Yeah. When you do that PSA, make sure you give a link. So like I said, you're absolutely right, Carl.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Definitely Southern Boulevard will definitely, the bid wants to be part of that. And I'm sure Renee and Community Board 12 as the chair, that's something that we're very, very interested in.
Yes.
As well.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
I see that we have Evelyn on the line.
We've got Evelyn, we've got Michelle, we've got Maya, who haven't spoken, and this is an opportunity.
Yeah, Maya, you turn your phone upside down. Then Maya went to the kitchen, got something to drink, then bring back no food. It's all over the place. Then one point, then Maya just going around, then Maya switched the sweater.
I ate beforehand.
Maya, why you mute? What you mute for? Maya, get your finger off the phone.
I'm back. Listen, thank you for inviting me to this call. It's extraordinary, and I just want to say I'm glad to see you, Pauline.
Yes, good to see you too.
You look beautiful,
Thank you.
I love this. Like, this is the first time I've been introduced to Carl Clay, and your work is so impressive. And I mean, the really what I'm like rejoice about. I heard you come from a different context for your theater. You know, it's not about the money and the glitz and the glamour, but it's like empowering the whole community through this acting. And that's really a powerful place to come from. You know, it gives you I could see your character has depth than just, out there for the glory of it. But to really give this message in these communities.
Yeah, we do.
It's really powerful. Because, and especially now, and afterwards, after COVID, because I work in the healthcare system, and it's real what's going on. And I hope you could do something to get that across to people, because when you're looking at numbers, it's not the same as when you're looking at a human being dying.
That's right.
Well, Carl, just so you know, Maya is an aspiring film director, maker.
I've worked in the theater before, and I've done. My son is an actor.
She hasn't gotten off the ground, but I think she got some interest. So I said this would be a great call to invite her to get a sense of what we're doing here in Queens.
Okay.
This is wonderful. I'm really inspired by what you're doing here, and thank you for just sharing with us.
Are you from Queens?
No, I'm from the Midwest.
Oh, you're from the Midwest.
Okay.
I am from the Midwest.
Are you living out there now?
No, I'm here in New York. I live in Brooklyn, New York.
Why are you here? This is Queens people. Get out of here. Get out.
Be nice. Be nice.
Here's the thing. I love Queens too.
Okay.
This is a Queens thing.
Have you done any stage work?
Let me hang with y'all. Hang with the big dog.
Have you done any stage work? Have you done stage work?
No.
Okay.
No.
So we have a workshop that we do on Thursday nights, and that's one of the things we're looking to bring online. Just depending how things go as we go towards the fall, but that's something that we're looking to conceivably bring online as a theater program class. It goes every Thursday evening, so we're going to look at that. So that might be something you're interested in doing.
Okay, well, please keep me in contact. Keep me in the loop.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll make sure you get the call's information.
All right, thank you.
I see there's Michelle that's on the line.
Yep.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Is that Michelle Reed or Michelle
Keller?
That's Michelle Keller?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
How are you,
And we
Michelle?
have Evelyn.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Michelle.
Hey.
Hey, Carl.
Hey.
I want to tell you, I love you, and Black Spectrum is a staple in our community. And if anything I can contribute, I would love to. I mean, I try to support when I can get there, your productions.
Okay.
And I know that you're going to need help more and more since this pandemic.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
the ones on the line, as you can see, Renee spoke about, her children and her, the children her mother raised. So there's people out here that all you got to do is just let us know what it is that we can do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We got our illustrious Glenn, who's an economics person, You give us the marching orders and let us know what we can do.
All right. That's what we love to hear.
I
That's
made
right.
that. I made that. Yeah.
Right.
And
I'm glad that Michelle said that, Carl, is because there are a lot of people out here that really, really love Black Spectrum.
Yes.
And I believe anybody, all of us will come to call if you need us, regardless of the anniversary, just you still being there. It's because if that's ripped out, that's another staple in our community that will be ripped out.
Yeah.
So, God, you got so many different things that is going on. I guess we got so used to having you. Yeah.
Well, it feels good to know that we got friends that we can count on, and as we move forward, as Michelle said, we're gonna need all the help we can get, because this is gonna be real interesting. Trying to put things back together, and I believe they'll come back together. It's just gonna take some real. It's gonna take creativity. And
Carl, I want you to know that our world media, anything that we can do for you, for Black Spectrum, anytime, just pick up the phone and call us. I'm not too far away from you, just a couple of blocks. And anything at any time.
Okay.
I would love to get some of your guests on. If we'd love to have another round robin with some of your guests.
Oh,
some of them that perform. I might as well put that out while he on there. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. No. Listen, this would be great, because look, even though we have our mission of spreading messages and trying to educate folks and stuff like that, the bottom line is actors love to act, and the bottom line is the outlets in which they can express themselves and get their work out there and be acknowledged is great. So I'd love to make this just a part of what it is that we do before we open a show or we do something. I think that's a good thing.
Yes.
I think just listen to Carl. Could you imagine if you got Melvin Van Peebles or Ben Vereen and just sit and listen to them tell the history, the story?
I would love to hear that history.
Oh,
yes.
that people will sit there and like, whoa, that's impactful right there.
Yeah.
Carl, this is Michelle. I don't know if it's a long shot. I'm sorry, Alvin.
Go ahead.
If there's any way we can get Harry Belafonte, because he's in the twilights, he's in his 90s now.
Yeah.
It would be such a great thing to have him come into our community and address us, because he's a treasure trove of information.
Well, this goes back maybe I'd say about 15, maybe about 12 years ago, maybe 13, 14 years ago. So this is when R.C. Davis and Ruby Dee was still alive. And so we wanted to do this thing between artist and activist. And so I was talking to Ruby Dee, and she said, that's something that we should put in place in some way. And I figured that we were just talking, and she got on the phone and called up Harry Belafonte, and he came to the meeting. He flew into New York for this meeting that we had up at Abyssinia Baptist Church. And he's very deep into the politics of African Americans right now. And if it is tied to a particular issue that he's wants to spend his time with, he'll respond. I don't know that he's into, the celebrity part of it anymore. It's in other words, at that time we were talking about, as a matter of fact, I'll tell you exactly when it was. If you remember, Danny Glover was turned down for a cab in New York.
Yes.
You remember that? Right. So it was right around that time that's when that occurred. And he responded, he was responding to that. And the kind of things that we wanted to do in terms of just getting the message out there about the, you know, the whole how Black men were in jeopardy, you know, in this country and so forth. So I say all of that to say that if there is, you know, if there is something that he ties himself into, he sees himself, then, you know, that might be something he'd respond to. But I mean, look, you know, we'll definitely try. You know what I mean? We'll try. You're right. He has an incredible memory, very crystal clear memory of everything. It's kind of like you know, when Dick Gregory would come to Black Spectrum.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
I would sit there and talk to Dick. You know, I'd pick him up at the airport, and we'd come back to the theater, and as we're driving, you know, we're talking about different things, but his memory was like, I mean, unbelievable. You know, and then it dawned upon me one day. I said, how many people can you talk to that knew John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, did their thing in the 20th century and is operating in the 21st century? I was like, you know, this is like, he was just a walking encyclopedia, and he could tell you about particular days and circumstances that, you know, it wasn't like his memory was cloudy or anything like that. He was very sharp in his memory of events. And you know, I remember him telling me something about even Rosa Parks, and he says, you know, everybody's talking about, oh, Rosa Parks, you know, didn't get, you know, wouldn't give up her seat because she was mad. Rather, she was tired. He said that wasn't the circumstance. He said she was pissed off because of, you know, the young brother who got murdered, and they put him in the casket.
Emmett Till.
Emmett Till. She said that's what she was pissed off about. That's what she was really pissed off about. It wasn't, oh, I'm tired and I don't want to get. He said that's what she was pissed off. So it's just interesting to hear the real stories that would come out. So you're right. I mean, somebody like Harry would be great. I mean, we'll see what we can do. You know, we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, we have a few actors like Sidney Poitier. I would love to sit down and talk with them. You know, they're all getting up in age. Cicely Tyson. Yeah, they have so much knowledge and inspiration to pass on to the youth. I think, you know, if we could pull something together, that would be wonderful. You know?
Yeah. I agree. That's what we've been trying to do. You know, with our conversations series that we do, and you're right. Some of them are getting up there in age, and it's, you know, Ozzy and Ruby would always come to the theater, and as strange as it is, people say, "Oh, they're big stars," and they did. Yes, they were. But you know what? They were the last ones to leave at the end of the evening. Okay. Now, and I'm gonna just put it out there. I remember Tashina Arnold came to the theater one time. We were having a program, and a limo came up, and it sat outside, and we were like, "Well, is she gonna come in?" Well, she sent somebody in. Well, when you specifically, she's gonna have something to say. Then she'll come in, and then she's leaving right after that. Okay. And she sat out there, you know. So sometimes people play the celebrity card to the hilt, and you just say, come on, that's not necessary. And that's one of the things we always appreciated about Dick Gregory, because he would come in and he would he'd call somebody on the phone and say, hey, look, you got to come down here to Black Spectrum or whatever. And he wasn't into, you know, that piece. He was just saying, look, this is a place where we have a chance to be who we are, and that's got to be appreciated. And so we've always tried to tap those folks who do that. And
that's it, Carl.
Vivica Fox was one of the people who, you know, I mean, she's had a history of being real difficult and all of that. And I think probably she went through some things and really kind of got it all together or whatever. But I can tell you, she was really the consummate professional, and she was just a really wonderful person to deal with when she came to the theater. She was just gracious, and you know, so most of the time people come in and they see a whole Black audience. That's another thing. You'd be surprised how many performers come out and the audiences are not all Black anymore. Not that that's the only thing they do, but it makes them feel good when they are in front of their own folks to be able to perform and do what they do. So, so yeah, we want to do more of that, you know.
Are you going to have anything for the summertime, do you think, for the kids? Because I don't know if you've heard anything yet from the city.
Well, you know, we've been trying to figure out if we're going to do a summer camp or not. It's just so many different variables with this time. Yeah. You know, the social distancing is fine. You know, suppose you don't get that completely correct or something, you know, does the parent come back to you and, oh, well, you know, you're responsible for this or you're responsible, you know, it's a real dicey thing. Now, the good part is there's an outdoor area in front of the theater, which we can work. So we're on the fence about it right now. We're going to make a decision somewhere around the first week of June. We're going to figure out, okay, how is this looking? The other thing is the new city has canceled the summer programs for youth, and they've cut it out. So it's going to be up to the city council to put it back in if they do it. But the mayor's cut it out of his budget because, you know, he says that money has to be used, you know, for other things. So people like Councilman Miller and Adams and Richards have been fighting, basically saying, what are you going to do? You're going to put 75,000 young people out on the street in the summer with nothing to do with all of these things going on. So something tells me at the last minute, they're going to come up with something. I really believe
that's good. That's good.
Right.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah.
Right. They need something to do.
Right.
Yeah, but you got to be real careful with this thing. I get what I'm saying because remember, this COVID is different in children than it is in adults.
Yeah. So you have to be very careful. And strangely enough, one of the values of our summer program has been that the age category for most of our instructors and supervisory staff have been more mature adults. We haven't gone after the, you know, like the 17-year-olds watching the 10-year-olds, you know what I mean? Because some of them can be kind of like childish themselves in some respects, you know? So we've gone for a little older population, and that's the population that's, you know, at risk. So that's another reason why we got to look at how we're going to do the camp and, you know, all of that. So we're, like I said, we're still looking at it.
Glenn, it looks like it's time to wind down our show. And I would just like to also just remind everybody that you're listening to Our World, Our Power. And don't forget to follow us on our YouTube channel, as well as Facebook, Instagram, Google Play, iTunes, Spotify, and of course, Caribbean Buzz TV and Radio. And Carl, it's been an honor to have you on our show.
I've been honored. Thank you for having me on. Thank you. It's a pleasure working with all of you. And, you know, as you know, I know all of you here, and continue to do what you do. We're all in the legacy category. So all we can do is try to leave something and make sure that we are training and making sure that the tracks are laid down for the next generation, so to speak. So I applaud everything that you guys do. And to my brother over there with the Business Solutions Center, okay, you know, keep on doing what you do. A lot of people don't know that, you know, he brings it when he comes, and his jokes aren't always that great.
Oh no, yes they are. They are.
But he does bring it. He does bring it, and he's helped a lot of people, you know, get their thing together. And that's what we got to do in this community, is tighten up our business community. Glenn, I salute you and for all you do, because we know that that's the future. Because if we don't pull our thing together from a business organizational standpoint, we're gonna be. It's just gonna be a real mess for us, you know.
Carl, before you go, would you let people know how they can get a hold of you?
Sure. We have a website, www.blackspectrum.net. Our phone number is 718-723-1800. And we're also on Instagram and Facebook. And come check us out. And this Thursday at 7:30, we have Thurgood Marshall. And you can go to our website. It has the web ID and the password in order to get into that program. It's free, and come check out some Black Spectrum theater.
Okay.
You know. So.
How can people reach you, Glenn?
They can call me at 718-291-2110. That's Sutphin Boulevard Business Improvement District.
And Mr. Alvin Hartley.
Oh, that's right. If you need to reach out to me, you can call 347-234. Oh, matter of fact, that script is not right. Let me look at that again. Well, that number is 234. Make that 347-234-5304. That's 234-5304. Or you can go to tmium.com.
You know, I willfully did that. Take care, everybody.
Carl, I want to say also, it's great to have the gray beard celebrities on today.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, yes, you all are handsome gentlemen.
The elegance of elegance.
Yeah. The beards have it, right?
Well, absolutely, sir. The beards have it on this one.
Thank you all for listening, and I'll catch you all next week on Our World, Our Power.
We'll be right back. But first, are you a small business owner looking for solutions? TMI and Partners is a business solution company offering operational, branding, and financial solution. For only $9.99 a month, your company will be assigned a personal business advisor. Well, that's right, only $9.99 per month, no contract, and you're on your way. Call TMI at 347-234-5304. That's 347-234-5304. Or visit their website at tmium.com. Tomorrow, the world will know your business. Is that it, guys? Hello? Did I do good?